3 platforms across the world. The globalization has commenced. Let me see if my my microphone is working well. Let's create a poll. Let's create a poll in here. I'm not sure if this is allowing me to create this poll, but let's see. Let's try it out. Facebook not cooperating with my poll creation request. That's all right. Let me see if I can. Well, I'm not going to worry about all that right now. Look at my beautiful setup here for my studio and my constant improvement. Let me take a sip of water. Of course, I start the video and I get a little raspy. So, happy Tuesday, everybody. It is Tuesday, right? Today's Tuesday. Been a lot going on already this December 1st. I've got people messaging me, ready for work, ready for my services. So thanks for being with me and joining me here today. So I'm going to jump into it. I've got a few notes that I took down, but as I was writing this beautiful sign for you guys, for you all, so you knew what the topic was about in case you just decided to scroll on by there and you said, oh, I'm not going to watch this. I see the title. But look, I'm making a beautiful environment to make this more welcoming. It's like when you plate food up, when you put the food to be served, to be given to your customer, you make it look a certain way. That was probably one of the main things, one of the top 3, at least 5 maybe, things I learned in culinary school was plating, details of plating. Those fine details, the more appealing to the eye, the more appealing to the experience of eating. And that's what a lot of times dining, cuisine is all about. So I'm working on creating a more beautiful environment. I'm working on my lighting. So if you have any feedback for me, feel free to share that. I'd love to know. So I'm going to talk about building momentum again. So if you're anything like me, you know, you've had different ups and downs, different waves of energy this year. And basically, as much as maybe you've figured out what works over some periods of time, maybe for whatever reason, that didn't continue to work. Maybe you were locked in with one routine, with one ritual, with one habit. And then all of a sudden, it was like whatever you were doing just stopped working. And I don't think that's unique to this year. I think that's commonplace. I think that happens throughout our lives, any given year, any given month, any given season. That's bound to happen. But I do think it's happened more regularly this year than ever. I think it's happened where, you know, I notice with myself, I get into a good flow, into a good rhythm, and then some new challenge presents itself just when I feel like I'm hitting my stride. And again, maybe that's not just this year. Maybe it's always been that way. And for whatever reason, it stands out more this year. So I've been reflecting on that. And 2 weeks ago, I kind of hit a wall. Had a few things happen where I felt like a lot of the momentum that I had been building and that I had built all of a sudden kind of went out the window. And that was extremely, extremely challenging for me at that moment. Not because it was such a hardship, but because I didn't have some solutions to the challenges that presented themselves. So it was more the unknowing than it was the actual some problem that I was caused. Excuse me. And so what can you do? You have to adjust. You have to adapt. You have to see things differently. You have to try things that you weren't doing before. You have to pick up some old things that maybe you'd put down. Make sure, that I'm securing my best habits. And I'll talk about that in a second. But in the word momentum is the word moment. And I don't think that's insignificant for recognizing how to build momentum, because momentum is really just a string of connected good moments, winning moments, doing best practices consistently one after the next. Excuse me. And that's almost underestimatedly important. That in each given moment, it doesn't mean I need to do everything perfectly or I need to do all these right things all at this one time. But it does mean in any given moment, I do have the capacity to make choices which are going to lead to a better. When we talk about future, a lot of times we think about like way out into the future. But I'm going to say future as in just any time beyond now, right? We get into this complexity of what time is and how time works. And sometimes we can overthink it, right? It's just like if I fast today, and I'll talk about that in a second. If I do something super beneficial for myself today, I'm going to derive some benefit of that later, right? In the future. It might be an hour from now, it might be a day from now, it might be years from now. But some benefit of that will be derived, and there tends to be these compounding and residual perpetual benefits. So really focusing, if you want to start building some momentum in your life, maybe you feel like you lost some momentum this year. Maybe you feel like, quarantine or the colder weather, you haven't been working out as much. Maybe you feel like over Thanksgiving you ate more than that you really wanted to, and now and you haven't gotten back into good habits. So building momentum, rebuilding momentum starts with focusing in the moment. Focus on the moment. Focus on those moment to moment, right now decisions, and the next few decisions that you'll be making as the opportunity comes up to choose this or that. There's no right or wrong, right? But making certain choices regularly will lead to a different outcome, right? A different future, a different consequence. So how do you do that? So that's super macro, right? Super big picture. Even though I'm talking in the moment, I'm not really talking very, very detailed specifics. So we have to, for me, I focus a lot on getting back to basics, getting back to square one. What do I mean by that? Well, we all, in pretty much any area of our life, have some basics, right? Maybe that's, brushing your teeth first thing in the morning. Maybe that's meditating first thing in the morning. Maybe that's going for a run first thing in the morning. Maybe that's, how do you set yourself up for a good day of nutrition intake? What do you do to set yourself up for that? Maybe it's at the end of your day. What are your habits, your best habits around going to sleep and having a good night's sleep and resting well? So there's some best practices that we all have. Again, I'm going to call it like your square one practices, your square one mentality, your best default, not your default for the things that don't really work for you, but your default for the things that when you're doing them consistently, when you're doing them regularly, you do notice a direct benefit correlation. So I'll give you a few examples. I kind of touched on them. For me, meditation, daily meditation, 10 minutes at least every morning. Today I actually did 15. I had to have a break at the 5-minute mark. I had something come up. Then I finished another 10 minutes. So I did 15 minutes altogether. Nutrition, generally speaking, but yesterday I did, and I'm still doing actually, a fast, a cleanse and a fast. So a cleanse is I do a fast supported with some micronutrient product, line of products system that I use and advocate. So if you're interested in leveling up your nutrition, I can help you in that area very easily. You do not have to be in Las Vegas for me to help you with that. Big impact on mental state, mental clarity, energy, mood, all those things. So if you're saying, what would momentum look like for you? Well, I would have more energy. I would be in a better mood. I'd be more focused. I'd be more productive. Those are some of the ways you would describe how you feel when you're in momentum. How are we going to get back to that? One of the big ways we're going to do that is with the right nutrition. And you don't have to use the system that I use. If you have another system you like, if you want to just do a water fast, that's beneficial. If you want to do a cleanse with juices, fruits and vegetables, that's great. But what I can tell you for sure is the system that I use works for me, and I know a lot of other people who have derived benefit from it as well. And so that's going to be my first thing, is just focusing on those square one, the most basic building blocks. Again, like let's take an example of working out, of exercise, right? Sometimes what happens a lot, I notice with people, is they overthink it, right? They overthink working out. They overplan. They overpressurize themselves. I do this with myself sometimes, where I think, oh, I need to go and work out for an hour. I need to go and work out for 2 hours. Sometimes the other night, I drove over to the track. I had a hard time finding the place. So I was like annoyed about it, but I'm like, I'm going to find this park. It was like kind of like this hidden park, and there's a great track there. And I drove over to the track. I was trying to stretch out. It was cold. I couldn't get into it. I couldn't get my heart rate up. And then I was like, I'm just going to go run. It was such a simple activity. I was trying to do all this complicated stuff. I was like, I'm just going to go run. And my heart rate got up. I got a good sweat going. I was, I had a good respiration going. It was just a good decision. And that's what I'm going to advocate for you guys, is make those good decisions, but keep it super simple. Like if you're having trouble getting into momentum, if you're having trouble getting yourself going, getting back to, your regular good habits, again, take it moment to moment, but focus on the simplest version of that habit, the shortest version of that habit. It doesn't need to be an hour. It can be a 5-10 minute run, walk outside. That makes a big difference for you. Let me go close this window. We got a lot of planes going overhead. Flying as I try to shoot my video. All right. So the next thing I'm going to share is, it's very important when you're rebuilding momentum to have a periodic shifting of states. So what can happen a lot of times is that I notice, again, I'm talking from personal experience, is when I'm in momentum, or even when I'm starting to get energized, sometimes I'll overcommit to one thing. So maybe I overcommit, maybe I commit training. Those are usually my two main things. But when I say overcommit, I mean I invest too much of my time, energy, resources into that one area, and now I've caused myself a deficit in some other area. So, for example, if I'm working a lot, I tend to experience a deficit in my training. And my training, isn't just about, looking good or feeling like I'm in shape, but it actually is something I do to regulate like my stress, to help increase my energy. I train and I get energy. I don't feel like I get more tired from it. I feel like it gives me energy. It's my outlet. It's a meditation for me. It's just enjoyable. So that's an offset. That being said, sometimes I can do too much training and I'm not working enough. So now, maybe I experience some stress because, I have a slow week or 2 weeks of income, or I didn't do a good job on, with a client. And then my mentality is thrown off because of that. So it's, people talk about balance or moderation. I don't think it's that. I think it's shifting. I think it's being able to go from all completely immersed, completely focused, completely locked in one area, and then having an estimation. It's not to say, okay, it's finished now go right on the next thing, but you have like, a window, where it overlaps on each end instead of a fine line, so excuse me. I start talking, I'm breathing in all this more dust. So you have this window, and on each side, right? And maybe it's an hour before one thing finishes and an hour after, or a day before, a day after, a day before. So that's how I look at it. Periodically shift states. So having deliberate time for rest, for total disconnection, having a deliberate time to focus on, maybe it's computer work, but maybe you're like me, you have computer work, but then you also have to do work in another space. Like I work in the kitchen and I work on the computer. So breaking up my time in that regard, because what I find then is one thing tends to energize the next, right? If I go from my workout right into my work, if I do a delivery and while I'm out, I stop at a park, take the dog with me. At night, turn off my device and do some writing. Listen to a book on Audible. Deliberate things to occupy my attention rather than my attention just getting pulled onto whatever, because that's what tends to happen to most of us is we don't deliberately put our attention onto something, so our attention finds something to be put onto. And maybe you say, oh, well, that's fine. My attention can just go wherever. But what I will tell you is, one, it's not going to lead to your optimal outcome, but even probably more significantly is it's not going to lead to your optimal state. If you're letting your attention be pulled wherever, whenever, you're not going to really set yourself up for success. You have to really structure out to some degree, not fully, give yourself some fluidity, give yourself some flow, but also give yourself some structure, because in structure you can build. It's very hard to build without structure. So that's going to be kind of like my third main point. So first, I've got, again, focusing on the moment. Second is go back to basics. Go back to square one. Go back to the simplest version of all of your best practices. The third thing is the periodic shifting of states. And then the fourth thing is what I just kind of touched on, is it's structure, it's scheduling, it's time, energy, resource management. And one of the main ways to do that is by blocking certain things off, right? So give you an example. Yesterday, I had a client message me last minute to get done. And, I love taking care of my clients. I love making sure that they know that, I'm always going to, be able to accommodate them. But it was just last night with some of the things that I had planned, and it would have totally thrown off everything that was already in place for me. So I said, I can do that for you, but I'll just have to bring it on Tuesday if that's okay. That was fine. And as a result, I was able to do the work that was needed, but still attend to the more immediate things that I had already structured, already planned. So why is that important? Well, it allowed me to get some of those things that needed to be done first, needed to be done somewhat urgently, that had been maybe I'd been putting off, but I'd set the place for those things to be done. It allowed me to do those things as they needed to basically be done, right? It wasn't like, oh, okay, now I'm going to wait, for this thing another day or 2 more days because I need to put this first. I kept the first things first. I prioritized what I needed to prioritize and got that done. And I still got the work done, brought the money in, and I actually got the work done earlier than I expected to. So I created more time for myself. So that's really important too, is be proactive with taking care of the things that you can take care of. All right, guys, I actually got to take this call, so let me run. I'm going to leave it there. Blah, blam, Kaz out, and I will see you all next time. Thank you so much. Have a great day. Talk to you then. Hi, just 1 second.